I think it's a bit rich of Michael Gove to be saying that if you are marching on a pro-Palestinian demonstration, that you risk rubbing shoulders with extremists. Of course you do. Of course you do. But presumably now, if you have anything to do with the Conservative Party, you are risking uh, rubbing shoulders with extremists from Tufton Street, from the ERG, and so on. You risk bumping into Liz Truss. That must be something to be particularly worried about. Michael Gove, the man who makes Ezekiel 23:20 relevant again, he condemns the sort of chants from the river to the sea. I think rather than condemning that chant, it needs to be contextualized. I think he talks about the legitimization of an extremist position which intimidates and leads to hate. Yes, well, the whole point about marching and about protesting is that it makes a noise. The word to protest is to shout. It's not specifically about objecting, it's about shouting. That is what the word protest means. That's why people, for example, in the religious tradition are called Protestants. I think it's to be greatly regretted and greatly condemned that the pro-Palestinian marchers uh, have presided over a rise in anti-Semitism, and I think it's appalling and shocking, and utterly to be rejected and condemned that people in our community in the UK should feel intimidated because there are other people who wish to march in protest. A protest march should not be intimidating. It should, in fact, be a celebration of our freedoms. But yes, it's in many ways it's something which can get out of hand and has got out of hand. But Gove's fear mongering is a distraction, maybe a distraction from the fact that he's under investigation for something, God knows what. But I think I think it's not extremism that he should be flagging up, but the fact that there are places in London which Jewish people in the United Kingdom feel are no zone areas for Jews at weekends. That's outrageous. That people in the UK who have every right to go anywhere should feel intimidated and should feel in fear about being, for example, in the centre of London on a Saturday. It's shocking, it's wrong, and there should be more that we can do than simply pontificate about extremism from the sidelines. Uh, it's certainly not as if we don't have the information and we don't have the intelligence about extremists infiltrating these marches and spreading hatred and dissension, which of course they are doing. But the marches themselves are a perfectly legitimate expression of democratic right. I'm not convinced, and I haven't been convinced from the beginning, that marching at this time is the right or worthwhile thing to do. The question is, what do you want to achieve by the march? A show of solidarity in support of Palestinians, I think, is perfectly reasonable. If that is the purpose of the march, great, great. But I'm not sure that is always the purpose of the marches. I think to persuade the British government to demand a ceasefire, well, the British government can demand what it wants. I'm afraid it has very little influence on Mr. Netanyahu, and that is the problem. In the same way as because of the sanctions regime that we have embarked on, we have very little influence on the activities and the decisions of Mr. Putin. So similarly, calling on the British government to stop Putin in his attack on Ukraine, that is fairly futile as well. So you have to ask what is the purpose. But a demonstration of support for Palestinians who are under siege, great. And equally, of course, a demonstration for the many Israelis who have been displaced and who are under threat, and indeed a demonstration of support for the Israelis who suffered such an appalling and such a brutal attack on October the 7th. These are very important. But now more than ever, I think one has to be aware that the clock is ticking, and Netanyahu's threat to attack in Ramadan will be carried out unless there can be greater efforts to persuade him to hold back and to pull back. The negotiations with Hamas for hostage release have not worked. I think Netanyahu and Hamas should be persuaded to try again. That is a reasonable objective that we can look for, and that would be a purpose for marching, I think.